You guys can get here.
Yeah, I need you.
I know you're busy.
Well, this was a, oddly, this meeting took a lot of time.
You're stressed out.
Yeah, it was, time consuming.
He's thinking that old software we did. We are ready to roll. All right. Well, thanks. Been a while since I've done one of these meetings.
2 weeks at least, right?
All right, this is the town council meeting. Today is Wednesday, June 17th. And after this, we're also going to be doing a water town council oversight meeting immediately following. And the town council water meeting, we have several things on the agenda, one of which is the possible rate increase, and that's where that discussion will take place. And so if we could call this meeting order and stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so any declarations of conflicts of interest from any of the board members? Let's do a roll call. Let's do that first. Paul,
Edwardson here.
Debbie Cox here.
Marty Lisenby here,
Danny Brass here.
and looks like Mike's MIA. Someone want to text him? Shoot him a text. Hey, Mike,
I'll shoot him a text.
hurry up, dude. He's in that business that sometimes you're stuck in an attic fixing someone's AC this time of year. Anyway, skip the, we're put the mayor's town update probably towards the end of the meeting for today. Consent agenda, approval of minutes for April 15th, 2020. You guys have a chance to look at the minutes?
Yeah, we got the meeting. I reviewed them.
Paul or Danny, any questions about the minutes?
No.
They look all right to you? If someone want to do a motion on it then?
I make a motion, we approve the consent calendar with the minutes from April 15, 2020.
And vote?
Aye.
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 And motion carries. And discussion and action items. We first have on our agenda the discussion and possible action on fiscal year 2020 through 2021 annual budget resolution R-2020-06. And we've got this, just for those that are here, we had a budget meeting last time, in our last meeting, as far as public hearing goes. Because of the nature of it, is there anybody here that want put any input in on this prior to that, even though we don't necessarily have to have a public hearing? I'd like to make sure if someone's here because they see something they can question on, we can ask for it. Raise the hands, anybody? Anybody on? Go ahead, Margaret.
Now, this goes back to the part of the road
Name for the record,
issue.
please.
Margaret Osowski, 102 Westfield, Opinion. This goes back to the road issue, the dirt road issue, and you guys were, I don't think you were really going to allocate any money to the dirt roads, but so I just wanted to show you what we live with out there every day, that if the wind's blowing and I have my windows open, this is what is on my countertop in the morning. If the wind isn't blowing and I have the window open, this is what's on. So there's a big difference there, and it's not healthy for us to be on with all that kind of dirt in our lives so much. And I got this on the other section of the counter too, so, I mean, I try to keep my house as clean as possible. It is impossible out there. So, anyways, I just want you to take that into consideration that, we do have a problem out there. And if you guys could maybe recommend to me, because I want to do something, and you guys can't afford it, then I would like you to recommend to me a bonding agent that I can spray on my part of the road, because after 11 years, I'm tired of it. And when I moved here, I don't want to, people say, well, you were moving on a dirt road, and yeah, I knew I was moving on a dirt road, but when I moved on that dirt road, there was gravel, and it was not like it is now.
It's muddier than it was,
And so I would like if you guys could just, maybe after the meeting, give me or I can come down tomorrow, you guys can recommend some products that I could buy, because I have a sprayer and I'll just spray the road, because I'm tired of it.
We're working on some things right now, Mark. We got a water truck, we're trying to refurbish and get it going, so we can start watering the dirt road.
Well,
That'll
but,
help keep the dust down and everything.
That's a daily thing.
but that, if you could, like you can purchase, I started looking, actually, I did some research, and one of the things is reducing the speed. So, maybe in the developments themselves, because you're not gonna, on that straightaway, you're not gonna reduce the speed, but, you could, maybe reduce the speed somewhat. And they do have watering roads. You can get like those agents, that bond to the dust particles together. There's like a soybean product. There's all kinds I can give you. This is from Alaska, because they have a lot of dirt roads up there too. So I can give this to you guys to read over. And I have another one that discussed, different things too on trying to control dust on roads. And I really, really, really would appreciate something that I could put on my road right now, because I'm tired of it. And waiting, it's just so bad.
Well, the benefit with the Alaska roads, they're frozen 9 months out of the year. So
I know, but when they're not, they're horrible. I've been there, and you can only go 40 miles an hour, so, it's not like here where you can do 65, 70 miles an hour. So anyways, I'll bring this up to you guys after the meeting, and I would, like something, otherwise I can pick my own.
I appreciate your comment, and we haven't decided to do anything with that money. Just to remind you, this was money we were trying to set aside that we know we need to have some needs. And we hear you loud and clear out there, and I think that our goal will be to come up with what can we do overall. And there will be a multi-step plan that, number one, we could just gravel those roads, and then we could water them. How often can we, and how often would be effective? And then we could put a bonding agent on there. Ben did some research on one as well. We've done that in the past as well. I know Tish has lived here since they did that. And that particular, I'm not sure what that process was. She says everybody complained it was horrible for the smell of what they put down. And that's what was the complaint. It wasn't the dust as much as the smell. But then 6 months later, it was like it didn't even happen. And so I hate to throw, good money after something bad, but we can look at all these things. I haven't seen what you've got there, but I'm happy to look into it. And the other permanent fixes is, blacktop. And, maybe everyone's ready for that now. I mean, we've asked in the past, and
They're not out there. They're not. They don't want blacktop. They just want gravel. They just want their road sticks. They want gravel on it. They don't want blacktop, because it's going to be too much money. So they would just prefer like either type 2 road base, but they don't want to spend the money. And if there's a special assessment out in Gooseberry, they're not gonna. They don't want it.
right. Jason.
Has anybody ever looked into just simply oiling it? I mean, they've done that for generations, and on most roads it's used like 2 or 3 times a year maybe, but it's super cheap, and it doesn't last a whole year or more, but it lasts
Do they even do
a
that?
lot longer than water.
Is that an environmental problem that they, you know, when I was a kid, motor oil.
That's
All
what
the
they
counties
use.
had, they just threw the motor oil from all the cars and they just sprayed it on the roads and there wasn't any bill.
It doesn't go far.
But then, you know, when it rains, it gets in the ditches and then there's an environmental.
The little research I did, that's exactly right. It seems like most agencies have moved away from environmental reasons.
Well, there's nothing against it though. I mean, there's no official regulation against it. It might be just a hearts and feelings kind of thing, because the oil comes from the ground. So if we put it on the road and it works its way back there, it's no harm, no foul.
Jason, does the oil last long, like say you're driving through it, it's on your tires, like if you went into your driveway, are you gonna have?
I would think you would.
It depends on how thick they put it on. I come from Washington State, and on rural roads, that's common that they would do that. So I mean, the climate's a little different, obviously, but right after they do it, yeah, it's kind of thick and whatnot, but then, you know, it soaks in and depends on how thick you put it on, and there's a lot of variables to it. But somebody that knows what they're doing, put it on, the road's really nice and it lasts for quite some time, and it certainly eliminates the majority of the dust issues.
Well, we, you know, putting road base and gravel, I mean, obviously that's more affordable, and maybe that's what we do with some of that money, and, you know, we can always look at that. Because I know that on Mount Zion Drive, that's what it was like, when they dug those trenches, supposedly tried to save some of that road base, but it was slip and slide and muddy after that, because some of that was contaminated, and that's what you're talking about. Every time it rains, that contaminated stuff becomes muddy, and, you know, it wasn't, you know, it's a shame they didn't put some new stuff down or something even back down, but, anyway, maybe that's an option when we look at gravel. Anyway, but just know that that money is set aside, has no special earmark at all. It's just money that we're planning on, that we want to put towards road improvements, so.
Yeah, I have a
Yes.
couple of points.
Sorry, name for the record.
Oh, Anthony Marlowe. I looked this budget over and I felt like offering a word of appreciation for what you guys are doing. Because this much money in a budget to serve as many people in as big an area as this is, you guys are doing an awesome job. Spreading that thin.
You know,
I've sat in your chair for 8 years, so I know what you're dealing with a little bit.
now, give us, everyone, a little bit of feedback, not just who you are, but in that respect.
I'm the vice mayor of Colorado City, so I've looked at budgets for 8 years. And they definitely have a bigger budget to work with than this by far.
I think you're still currently on the board, aren't you?
Yes,
Up there
I'm the
with
vice mayor now.
Okay, you were involved with the fire district oversight as well, so they're dealing with budgets as well. So I know
Yeah.
you're
So it's
used to doing this stuff.
one of the specific questions I had was on your grants. There's hardly any money in there for grants, and that's a big item that we deal with. I realize it takes local match to use the money, so if you don't have enough money to get a grant, then you have to be pretty careful.
Yeah, we had some grants this year to help do some studies and so forth, and this budget doesn't reflect a couple of possible grants that we're applying for, but because their applications already put in, we didn't include them in there, but we do have some grant money that we're gonna be chasing down, but,
Don't you have to budget in order to spend it?
well, yeah, but we can also modify that budget anytime if we get that grant.
I see.
So there's another hand over here, was it Jason? or-
Yeah, I mean, the budget's certainly more important, but just another thing that I've run across is ground asphalt is significantly cheaper than gravel. And it has the same effect when you put it on roads. So I haven't found a place around
It
here
makes it a real good road, yeah.
that does it, but I know it's much cheaper than gravel. It's certainly not cheaper than cinders, but actual road base or gravel, it's a budgetary issue. I don't know, if
Some
that
places
grinds the
sell that.
asphalt, it's just like gravel.
Sorry, just name for the record.
Jason Grant.
Thank you. And, do you know the place to buy that?
I don't hear locally, no.
Okay.
I know of other places up north. There's gotta be some place around here, because somebody breaks up asphalt in their reedy parking lots, and so there's a
Yeah, I just did that.
bunch of it. Yeah.
Big positive out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if you've considered maybe talking to Colorado City. They have their own processing plant there and make their own base with cinders. Make a cinder base that they use on all the roads there. And they actually prep the roads with that base that they're building there, and then they spray a seal on it and chip it. So most of the roads out there are chip sealed. And that's how they spread this.
I have a couple friends out there. I'll see if I can come up with. All right, thanks for the advice on that.
Could we get like a comparison list of what it would cost to do each of the different things, so?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to compile right now is, for everything from blacktop on down and, you know, based on, you know, we want to do this road back here up over the top of the ridge and, the rest of the outside drive out there. Also Canaan has some, very good roads out there. So we have a few of them we're going to be looking at. Margaret.
Margaret Osasi, you know, the county did that Sheep Ridge Road over there, and there's, I don't know what they did in this one section, but it's like concrete. I don't know what, you know, part of it's cinder, and I know they were putting dirt and cinder down, because I drove past them when they were doing it, but there's this one section on that road that is just like concrete, and the rest of it isn't, but there's about maybe a half mile to a mile of section, and it's like concrete, so you might want to contact the county to see what they did.
No, take a drive and take a look at it.
It's past, it's way past the, what's that quarry out there, and then it kind of turns in and there's a straightaway, so it's closer to, Virgin than, you know, up at this end, but boy, that one section is like concrete. As of last week, I can't guarantee this week.
Robert, you had your hand up a couple times.
Yes, just a note, that same cinder that, she's talking about, I was speaking to a excavation person and they were saying it was about 60 cents a foot. And asphalt right now is running for about $1.40 a foot on bids and small jobs in Colorado City. One that was just done on the cabin project.
Sorry, name for the record.
Robert Campbell, and those bids came through Royce Jessup.
All right, good to know.
Never been cheaper on oil.
That's on blacktop?
Blacktop, yes.
Right. All right, well, back to the resolution of the budget. Are there any other comments or from the council? Maybe you
And you
have
would-
questions on that?
There were no other changes since we last, right, Ben?
Jenny, any issues or questions on that? That's all?
Nope.
All right, we do a motion and say this is our initial budget for the year.
I move to make a motion, we accept resolution R-2020-06 for our adoption of the physical budget for the fiscal year 2020-21 for the town of Attleboro.
Yeah.
And vote?
Paul?
Aye.
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 Sidetracked by Michael.
I know Mike screws us up by,
He's, well, no, he's stuck in St. George, that's what.
Oh, okay. Sometimes it happens when you're an AC guy. And next item on the agenda. Discussion and possible action on adoption of financial policies, resolution 20-20-07. I'm going to recommend that we table this. I haven't had a chance to read through the whole thing. I've glanced at it and I understand what it is, and I think there's some good ideas in there. But I was talking to our attorney, who I should excuse, by the way. He was scheduled to go to Paris and Spain in this 2-week time block. And he can't get there by flight because there's no flights yet. And even the hotel that he's scheduled to stay in won't let him check in because he's not an EU resident. And so he's in Las Vegas as a consolation prize. He's not, but I was able to talk to him last night, and he would like to also read through these before we adopt anything. Some of these things, they came from the auditor's office as suggestions to be a fiscally responsible community. And so you might want to just take a look at these, and then we'll put them on a future meeting, and we'll have Sean's comments on it as well. So I just, I move that we table this item for a future meeting at this time.
Second.
And vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And, discussion and possible action on amendments to the Apple Valley General Map, first commercial ordinance 0-2020-09. Planning Commission recommended approval 5-0. We had this on our previous agenda, and we voted to accept it as well. What we didn't have on the agenda was the map itself, and I think maybe the ordinance we didn't have.
Yeah, so there were two changes that the planning commission recommended at once. It was the bubbling well change for low density, as well as the tourist commercial zone on the intersection of Main Street, Highway 59. When I drafted the resolution, I failed to include that highway and Main Street. So essentially, they recommended this one full package, and I broke it up into two separate ones.
So we've already looked at the verbiage on the tourist commercial, and this is the map part of the section. Anyone have any questions about the map or where we're at on it?
And is it still the same ordinance number?
No, it's a different ordinance.
This is for the map itself. The other one was for the actual zone description.
The first one was the bubbling well general map change. This one is for the Highway 59 and Main Street.
Well, we had the actual ordinance though, the written part of the tourist commercial that was an ordinance. And we passed that already.
That's right.
This is just the map to go with that ordinance.
Yep.
Any questions from community on what we're up to?
Nope.
All right, this was in, we had a public hearing on this already, and they passed this, it just didn't get passed on to our meeting in a proper way. So we're just cleaning up our paperwork here. Denny, you have any questions about it? Paul? And I don't have any questions, so.
I make a motion, we move to adopt ordinance number 0-2020-09, an ordinance changing the general plan map designation for the Main Street Highway 59 area.
And vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Resuming along. And report on June 2020 Apple Valley Fire from the fire chief. Sometimes we just do reports and recommendations, but you know, we have a major event out there, and like the fire chief, if you wouldn't mind coming forward here on the camera as well.
Camera?
Yeah.
It's your 15 minutes of fame.
All right, so pretty much everybody knows we had a pretty good sized fire over off of, over there by the Coca-Cola golf course. So it was named the Apple Fire. It was a delegated fire. It went to the BLM after our initial attack on the fire. So they took over the fire and pretty much ran IC and everything from there on out. So we had a couple drops from some tankers, some single engine planes. There was about 5 or 6 jurisdictions that showed up to help on the fire. Had about 50 firefighters, 7 from our department. Most of us showed up on initial attack. So once we showed up, there was a woman outside, which we didn't know who she was or anything. She was actually at the vehicle in front of the main entrance to the structure. After we pretty much noticed that everybody had been evacuated and went through all them protocols, I got called off to do a 360 around the building, and that's when we noticed the structure was going up. We also had fire to the west in the wash, and we had fire to the east on the other side of the building. So it was spreading pretty good. It was probably running at that time, so we had a lot of flare-ups and stuff. Probably about 40 to 60 foot plane lengths in the wash. So after the structure was taken care of by our engine, Hurricane's brush engine, and our Type 1 engine, we moved on for more evacuation further up the wash. where we had, I think it's, he is Randall Hall's brother, I think it is, or, a Hall. Anyways, might have been Clayton Hall. Anyways, he lives up there and he has a couple trailers, so luckily I had remembered that he had been living in that area, so I traveled up that way to get him evacuated out of that area, because he's pretty hidden back there. Also, luckily, the wind kind of died down. We got lucky. We've been having wind probably every day for a long time, and then it kind of died down late down that night. It was also moving to the south, which was very odd for us. So I think there was five actual structures threatened. 2 or 3 were actually damaged. We also there was a death. It wasn't related to the fire that we know of right now. It's still under investigation. We're waiting for the autopsy to come back so we can see what exactly happened. So fire possibly is going to cost it is going to cost about $80,000 to $100,000. So because of the initial attack and because of the CWPP and because of our interaction and ongoing interaction with the state, everything is covered by them. So none of this $80,000 to $100,000 is going to come our direction. It is in our area. If we wouldn't have handled this situation the way we did, we possibly would have been getting stuck with the portion of that bill. So everything worked out really good on that fire.
How many acres was it?
Ended up being 50. So it looked a lot bigger than that because of the smoke and everything else. People thought it was a lot bigger than that. But the structure, once a structure is threatened, then it's all hands on deck, call in whoever we need to. So
For us, I call it a major event though. Having that wind die down, because it was blowing like crazy for 3 days ahead of this thing.
yeah, I was completely lucky. So
It could have gone a whole different direction.
exactly, it could have moved into Gooseberry. So that's our major concern, is that really is not far from Gooseberry with that pass. That's usually where the wind's going. So very, very lucky. So in that effect, from performing on that fire the way everything kind of worked out, we turned that into getting a bill and getting paid for the fire. So we're in the process of billing out for this fire. When they delegate and take that fire over, we can bill for that fire as long as we can all the criteria. So the state's going to be getting billed from every agency on that fire, and they're going to be taking that cost. So we also had a fire 3 or 4 days later at Rick Miller's old house. I don't know if everybody knows where that is, but that was called the Paradise Fire. So we have to name these fires as soon as they become any kind of incident. So that one was roughly about a 40, 50 foot swath of area that we had get a little out of control. Luckily, we had a real quick response on that. Or else that was actually at the base of Little Creek, so that one could have been real scary. But it was handled okay. One injury, the lady, I think she got transported for smoke inhalation, trying to put it out herself. So
You know the cause?
human caused. So both fires were human caused, and the Apple fire is still under investigation. So I don't think there's been any charges yet on that fire, but it's still open. So that's about it.
All right, thank you. All right, discussion and possible action on zone change of parcel AV 1364-A from OST to open space at -5. We have the applicant in the audience. Do you want to say a couple things before we talk about this?
Yeah. I appreciate you considering it and looking at it. My feeling on it, when I looked at the change, it wasn't something that I just looked at recently. When I looked at this piece of property, I did my due diligence and looked at the maps, and basically it was on the land use map, it was considered ag. But the zoning was set as OST. So my thought was that it would be an easy change, which I guess you guys will decide that. There was some discussion at the planning commission meeting about wiener pigs, and I just want to put that out right at the front end that it's a non-issue. Number one, we're not intending on doing wiener pigs in any way, and the planning commission did address that and basically said it wouldn't be ever possible on that piece, which we're fine with. I just didn't want that to come up again, because that was the main issue I felt like that was coming up against us. There were notices sent out to everyone surrounding that, and from my investigation, looking into it, there was no opposition from any of those people that were noticed on this issue. There was some from people further away, which it's fine, it's a public meeting, they're entitled to say whatever they want. But the people that are close around this piece haven't objected to it at all. In all zoning transitions, there's going to be places where zones connect to each other. And so the opposition was saying that we didn't want agriculture next to rural estates. And if you look at the map, there's many places where you have agriculture right up against RE1 and all different things. So it happens. I did bring a rough draft copy of the lot split that we're looking to do, and our intention is to have the top section of this 40-acre piece be two 10-acre pieces that will be light residential. That's where we're going to build the homes. So it will be a good transition, and I think it'll be a comfortable transition. Anything that we do in the ag that we want to do would be on the lower half. And I've also talked with the people to the south of me, and they definitely want to stay in ag from everything I've looked at and considered. So I think it's a good transition. I think it would be peaceful. It shouldn't be an issue, and we don't intend on doing anything that's gonna cause a problem that way. So again, thank you for your consideration.
Denny or Debbie, do you have any questions? Paul, any questions for Campus?
How big is the lot that you have right now that you want to? 40 acres?
It's a 40-acre parcel now. We're looking to do a simple lot.
AG5, is that what you're looking at splitting into 5-acre parcels?
Well, we're asking for AG5 because I didn't see an AG10, but AG5 is what we're asking for.
What are you actually going to do with the 5-acre? What are you going to? I notice here it says the pigs in it. You going to have pigs on some of those acres?
We're not going to have pigs on it
Okay.
ever.
No, someone brought up the pigs. He's
Okay.
not here.
All right. I just noticed that.
He brought it up that he's not doing it.
I just wanted to express the fact that it's a non-issue in this discussion.
Eventually, it's to build a house.
You're not going to have a herd of cattle and all that good stuff.
Few animals, not any big herds.
No.
Well, if you go AG5, the codes, our ordinance say you can have 4 large animals per acre. So if you times that by 5 and then go another with the rest of the 40 acres, you can have a lot of animals out there.
Yeah. We're not planning on clearing the land to support that many animals in a herd particularly. But we intend to do maybe some greenhouses or something like that on the south end.
You say you've already chatted with your neighbors?
Yes, I've talked with Kendra, and Courtney Barlow's out in that same area, and they're definitely would like to stay ag.
Well, I believe, considering that it was originally, considering the land use was,
Yeah.
the planning map was agriculture, I don't think a large leap to allow the zoning for that.
What are your thoughts, Debbie?
I'm just trying to look at the map here, so from what I can understand, this is the road. Gregerson and Maple live here.
Yeah, well, this is Bruce and Mary right here on this
Okay, so over
property.
here
So
is
this is the,
proposed.
this is his proposal. This right here is the other.
So the houses are gonna go here, or the houses here,
Yeah, there's a 40-acre he owns, and then Ken owns these.
but this part that he's breaking off.
It would be probably like this.
Okay, so the animals are gonna go back this way, and the houses are gonna be this way, or is it gonna be less?
We don't have any plot plan on that.
I have a,
It's not something that we need to really address. It's,
right,
with the size of the land. As far as the zoning goes, it's more of a, he has the ability to do it, yet there's still setbacks each zone gives for each property. And one of the things that, I'll bring up is that regarding the wiener pigs, for example, the planning commission has put forward some type of thing here that said, do you give me your interpretation of this as it was done then?
Yeah, so what they,
I know Sean made some comments, and we were talking about this morning, and
when the planning commission was discussing this zone change, the biggest opposition, like has been discussed, was the allowance of pigs. The agricultural zone is a little unclear. It's first, I have the code pulled up here. So here you'll see that wiener pigs are a permitted use, but then later down at the end of the code, housing of wiener pigs may be approved by conditional permit. So it's a little unclear as to how to interpret that. And so when planning commission made the recommendation, they recommended that the change would be conditional on clarifying that wiener pigs cannot be raised on any parcel that's adjacent to a residential parcel. So there would have to be essentially a buffer parcel, which is a little bit non-traditional. But that was the recommendation that planning commission made.
And as I'm reading this right now, it already has that clause in it. It says that they have to get a conditional use. It's permitted, but you have to get a conditional use to do it. And of course, we're not going to issue a conditional use in a residential next to neighborhood. But this is one of those situations where you look at this, the verbiage on the zoning, you think we could have probably done a better job when we wrote it. And would recommend that we even go back in there and define it in a better way, that if we have a problem with the pigs next to these, well, how wide is your property? You know, that
13.
it's pretty square, about 1,300 feet. And so, we can put in the verbiage there that you can't put wiener pigs within 1,300 feet of another residential zone. And what that does now is the guy that has agriculture next to his property to the east would able to have wiener pigs, which is next to ag, in other words. And then, but you still have that 1,300-foot buffer before you get to the residential RE properties. And so it'd be his neighbor that could maybe have them, but he can't. And so we can change that verbiage in there a little bit to help clear that up. But for right now, he can't have them unless he comes and asks, and he doesn't want to have them. So I just think that that's a non-issue for me. But your comment on that?
I thought on the ordinance, the confusion is that you have it as a permitted use and also a conditional use. So if you just eliminate it as a permitted use and then spell it out that it is a conditional use, then that concern would go away, at least in my mind.
Yeah, it sounds easier that way, but the attorneys like to get in there and they don't want us to have any conditional uses at all. They would like to have everything that we want to have permitted. And so if we go into permitted, just have the verbiage that, we can't within it's permitted, but not within 1,300 feet of the zone, then yeah, it takes away the problem as well. Then we just get rid of conditional. That's the way he would push to do it because if we say no to you, but we say yes to someone else, that opens us up to interpretation. And it'd be better just to have it all conditional. And anyway, that's how I read it right now, but it's conditional anyway. And but I would like to put in for language for future neighbors of his that might come in for that. But do you have that zone map we could throw up there?
The 1,000-foot radius, or the actual zone map itself.
Well, that one works as well, but yeah, we could do the zone map itself. So all the purple there is what was labeled as agriculture in our general map from 2007. That's how far back that goes. And Ben found the ordinance for us and all of that. And so the property to the left of that, all of that is the stuff that we just voted on a few meetings ago that are going to be
RE5?
Not RE5, what we labeled it as low density.
Low density, that's right.
Low density. And then that property, right to the right of Anthony's property that has no color, that's BLM land. Above him is the RE property that concerns Bruce and Mary. And but all the purple stuff was on that general map as agricultural properties. So it's Oversight. Whatever that.
And Ben, as we were discussing before, the general plan says it's
Agricultural. Just, this is just for Marty's and the mayor's information. We do have a hand raised on Zoom from a Joan.
All right. Yeah, go ahead. No, you have it. All right, Joan. Joan, you have the tape. You have the floor, Joan.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
Am I being added to the agenda?
Floor is yours.
Do you ask to speak right now? Is that right? About the zone change?
No, I'm not asking to be a part of the conversation on the zone change. So should I mute back and unless you're adding me to the agenda?
Well, we've had that discussion on, whether.
This morning.
Yeah, we're not.
Okay, I'll wait till the public comments.
Yes.
I just got a comment on the zone change. Is this when it's appropriate for public comment on?
We don't take public comments at this point because they've already been taken, but we're human beings here. We'll listen to you for a minute.
Okay.
Stay with Mary. If Mary has something she wants to say, she's involved in this. So.
Well, it sounds like everything's going fine, so I didn't want, this is the reason I came to the meeting, so I don't want to throw a wrench in that, but my 2 cents on my zone change to agricultural. I'm directly next to some residential zone property and significantly closer to the highway, so I think it would be relatively inconsistent of the process to then have an issue with Anthony's property, which is much further away and already planned as ag. The second comment about this wiener pig issue, and I brought this up earlier, the reason why the attorneys have an issue with it, because there's this general concept.
You don't have to take public comments to the end, so.
Multiple devices.
This general concept of controlling use of property is a constitutional issue to a certain extent. So there's this fine line. The issue that everybody has with wiener pigs is the smell. Other than that, nobody really cares if wiener pigs are on a piece of property. And I'm sure there are ordinances on the book regarding smell issues. Every other city that I've ever been involved with has that. So if somebody does have wiener pigs and it's causing a smell problem to the neighbor, the smell problem to the neighbor is the action that people don't like, and that is an enforceable action. It's not the concept that they have pigs or not. And so I think we're overstepping our bounds if we're expecting to control whether or not somebody has pigs. It's the negative result of the pig that we should be regulating and having an issue with. Sound, smell, all of those things are all ordinance issues that are enforceable.
I wish life was as easy as you put it. I'm telling you, from where I sit, it's hard as hell to get any enforcement done on things like smell and flies and other issues that pop up. And that's why some of these things become such huge deals to some people, because they're afraid of what can happen with it. And it's what you consider offensive as far as another, someone else could have a whole different concept on. So, but
I've seen
anyway,
it
sometimes
successful in
one
cities where it works. If somebody's generally offended by smell, there's a complaint process to where eventually it can be a code violation, and eventually that changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's lots of code violations. I see Rich all over the place, and it's stop work order signs, so I know this goes on.
Yeah, that's where we learned about the enforcement part of it, because everybody has an idea of what they think they can do, and the enforcement process is so painfully slow. And so anyway, do you have any other comments, Debbie, about the zone change?
I have a concern if you change it to ag, it kind of opens up. That's a broad spectrum. They can do anything they want to do down the road.
Within the agricultural zone.
Yeah, but if you read the ag, it pretty well leaves everything wide open if you read the whole thing. They can pretty well do what they want to do within that spectrum.
Exactly.
I do have a concern about that.
Okay.
Yes, Mary.
Mary Kennedy
Thank you.
and Bruce Hubrecht. We have 50 acres directly across from Anthony's and Irwin's property there, and we don't object to the zone change. I think they have a reasonable expectation that the purchase they made, that this would be acceptable, and everything that I know and have learned about what their intentions are, I feel comfortable with. So I just wanted to say I support going ahead with it. And that's
Thank you.
all.
All right, thank you. So I want to make a motion now.
Yeah, I move we pass ordinance 0/2020-10, an ordinance changing the zoning classification of parcel AB 1364A from open space OSC to agricultural 5 acre AG5.
All right. I don't see a second. So, I'm taking it that both of you guys are against the change then. So what would be your objection to it? With given the planning, I mean, what does that mean to you that the zone plan says agriculture there? How do we turn this down then?
I'm not saying I'm totally against it. What would be the difference to Anthony's between RE5 and ag?
Buildings.
Buildings and changing your map again.
And so, like in the past, we've had to turn down zone changes because the general map wasn't in line. This one, the general map is in line. What's our reason for turning it down? We have to go and change the general map from what it is to something that's not, so we can approve what we wanted to have as opposed to what he's asking for. It makes sense at that point, how that works.
The problem I have is is that he in good faith purchased this. The reason he purchased this is because it was on a plan, general plan, it was ag. So now he wants to do ag, and now we're saying, no, doesn't make any sense to me. At all. This is, I mean, the pig issue was brought up and we dealt with that. What more issue could be there? Neighbor across the street doesn't care. It doesn't bother the neighbor.
I've talked to the other neighbor on the west side as well, John George, and he has absolutely no problem with it.
And the people to the south want
There's
to.
actually one more neighbor, one lot over from him. I talked to him as well, and he has no problem with it.
I have one, just as a FYI, the BLM land has grazing rights on it. You know, I mean, they can be grazing cattle on that land and have in the past, so it's just another piece of
You
information.
plan on putting houses out there on the lot, not metal buildings and connexes and all this kind of stuff?
Well, he can do whatever ag.
Yeah, I know, ag, you can do that. That's why I'm asking what your plan.
We don't plan on putting a big spud pit out there, no. I mean, we might do some decent looking barns,
Oh, I can understand that.
and if that turns it out to be a decent looking metal barn, so be it, but I don't think we have any plans for a spud pit, if that's what you're
I'm
saying.
not sure what that is.
What's spud
I'm talking a 40,000 square foot metal building, no.
Oh, okay.
And you've got, you know, I personally know people who have 5-acre residential now, they've got all kinds of crap on their property up in bubbling wells. You can't see it unless you're in space. So, you know, to me,
He's got a lot of trees on his property.
yeah, and so to me, it's just kind of a no-brainer.
If he could be living there right now, we wouldn't know it, because of how
Well,
trees he does.
Maybe I can add to that as well, and that is written into the deed when I purchased the property, is that I would not clear the trees against the edges, and then I wouldn't have anything setting next. So you really probably won't see anything there unless you are in space, like you said.
Yeah.
And does ag have to, with the connex buildings, adhere to the background, just like in the houses, just like the rest of everybody does?
I'm not sure what you mean by background.
Well, you know how the buildings have to match.
They have to match, yeah. They have to be painted. You can't go out there and put a white building with the big, you know, lettering on it, numbering, all that stuff. It's different. They have to be painted to some guidelines there, match the house or the trees or something, you know. So anyway, here's what I look at is that because this map is so old, we're gonna have to go in and decline this application, have the planning commission redesignate all of that area to not be in agriculture. And then Anthus then can then come back in and ask for RE, making him do that. And where does that put us legally? When you have, we're denying an application, changing it against what he wants to do. I just think we're in big trouble. I don't get it.
It doesn't make sense either. I mean, to my knowledge, there's one person that doesn't like it, and that person had a problem with pit pigs long time ago and smell and everything else, and that's a dead issue now. So, and we've all been up in that area. 40 acres is a big parcel of land. You won't see.
And you might see the roof. or
Not,
something.
yeah,
If
from
you're high enough,
above, but okay.
if you're up where Franklin's
I'm
or
not a fan
something,
of
he's
fire.
higher, you know, maybe you see it, but it's, yeah, this guy owns the property and he should have a right to do something on it.
Yeah, and I just believe that.
I don't, to me, it's a no-brainer
Me
because
too.
it's in our general map that way. How do you say no to this? The time to say no to that was, you know, back in '07 when, you know, that designation was put on there.
I don't know if that matter, but,
Yeah.
I can understand that. I just have a concern.
Anyway,
Leaves a lot open and that didn't do a lot of stuff after they get it rezoned, that's for sure.
you know, and I'll point out, you know, that, 3 of my neighbors are all ag right next to RE property. And, I mean, most of the time, that's what it ends up being. It's not this vision of, you know, I don't know, this guy's not, I'm hoping not gonna go out and find some used mark somewhere and try and assemble some crappy looking thing, you know, this is just, anyway, that's.
All the crap you look at, there got taken care of at the entrance to Bubbling Wells.
That's funny about
I
that.
got a metal shop, I've never heard anybody complain about
Your place looks beautiful.
it. Well, a lot of people didn't want
I
it,
know.
and I almost didn't get it.
Yeah, we reached our crap quotient at the entrance.
Well, I think you can expect, if you've seen his property, ours is gonna be very much comparable to that.
And Anthony says, he has some hoops to jump through before you can get a building permit as far as roads and access and things like that. So this is not happening tomorrow because, we are gonna make him jump through a couple more hoops.
The day after.
We gotta have fire access and we got a big dip in front of Jason's property.
Okay, I'll second Paul's motion.
All right, let's vote.
Aye.
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 And, discussion possible
I
action.
will be watching.
From space.
We'll be watching from space.
I have a real good spot.
Yeah, that's right.
Discussion and possible action on zone change parcel AB 1377-F-1 from TD to RE1, rural estates 1 acre. Applicant Laurel Utah Holdings, PC recommended a 5-0. Just as a reminder to everybody in the room, some of that property many years ago was zone PD because someone was coming in to build an RV park or mobile home park or something. And that's where that designation came from, because many years ago, someone changed all of that to this. And every time someone builds or wants to build it, we have to go back and change it, and go through this process to change it. This is basically that property on the corner that when you enter Bubbling Wells, which is down where the cursor is, it's that piece that Ben is highlighting with his cursor is the piece. Before we changed the general map, there was a lot split that affects this as well. There's 2 1-acre lots there, and there's 1 2.5-acre lot. And do you want to say something on your behalf?
Well, it's a simple thing. I think Barlow's had cut it up. It's basically the remainder of a big subdivision.
Yeah.
It's just a simple deal. We're
Just
trying-
something you want to build a house on.
That's it. Simple.
Sorry, name for the record.
Adam Morrell.
Thank you.
So the coyotes are living there now, so we can run
Do you
them
have any
out.
questions? It's this piece right here. And this is where you turn left. And this is where the ranch right now. This is where the steel joint is. Yeah, we were talking about 1 acre lot, 1 acre lot, and a 2.5-acre lot down there.
So to make the entrance look nice.
Yeah. So it's anyway, and there's some homes on these other lots, I think, right here. So. Any questions, Debbie, do you have any questions on this? No. Debbie, do you have any other questions on it? Paul, do you have any questions on it?
None.
Anybody want to do a motion on this?
I make a motion that we approve the parcel change AB 1377-F-1 from PD Land Development to RE1 Rural Estates 1 acre.
Second.
Yeah.
Aye.
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 All right. And item number 7, discussion possible action on amendments. 10-14, short-term vacation rental. PC recommended a 5-0 ordinance change on this ordinance. This is just a small change. It has to do with the state law. The state law precludes us from, let me get the right. I don't know.
One was the first change.
Flipping pages at a time. So it's just that under item A, advertise or use as a short-term vacation rental. We can't limit that advertising. That's the one limit that the state gives us, is we can't say that. So anyway, we're just striking that because it's against the state law to do so. Any questions on it?
And that's the only change.
That's the only change. everything else is the same. Any questions, Debbie?
No.
No question.
All right. Paul, you want to do the motion?
Yeah, I mean, we pass ordinance 0/2019-16, short-term vacation rental amendment.
And vote?
Aye.
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 And, let's see, who's on Zoom here? All right, let's see. Partial application, I spoke probably, so. Jen, do you have anything from Big Plains Water?
The only thing I have is, the state did send the chairman a letter approving our expenditure on that leftover money to redo the well, so we got the okay to go on that. That's,
Okay. And that's improvements that will help water that goes into the million-gallon tank at Cedar Farm, right? That's a backup role for that. Code enforcement, Rich Osowski.
Yeah, a couple of things. I had an extended conversation with the sheriff's department this morning, which came before the staff meeting. They're gonna be involved because they've got a contract with them now, basically. They wanna make sure that it's a smooth transition between me and, between them and I. So, we went over a number of issues, so we don't step on each other's toes. They will be more visible now. They will be patrolling the area. The comment they made to me is, that happens in a lot of areas, is sometimes the code enforcer is kind of a third party. So they would appreciate the residents to make the call if they have a problem. And, dog parking, illegal parking, noise violations. They will send a deputy out there. I was out in Cedar Point till 10:30 the other night because noise and people blocking off the road with vehicles. They're gonna be out there doing a lot more now. As far as red tags is concerned, there's gonna be some violations issued, which will prove to Apple Valley that we have a code enforcer. And that means a lot, especially in my neighborhood. Tomorrow, I'll be removing a red tag from some property in Cedar Point because they went through the proper procedure. It took some time, and that's what needs to happen. I go out there and remove the red tag because I did have one property that I put 5 red tags on. Maybe they were in the driveway, maybe they were on the side, and they run over it with a 20-ton crawler. And I said, well, I can't hardly hold them up, but they do that. So you're gonna see some changes, but I am available. So if anybody needs a problem, the only thing I have out in Bubbling Wells is, I do respect the night sky. So if you got a amount of land out there, there's a problem out there where there's some lighting out there that is pretty high up in the sky. And you can see it from all over. Now I did light it up, they got time to change it, but we want to make sure other people that change it to ag or whatever doesn't light up the night sky. Because it seems like people like to have lights, because in my neighborhood, I had some, a homeowner move in and floodlights went up. You don't need the floodlights. You're gonna have the officers now will be able to come out and take care of problems. So I wanna make you aware of, all you have to do is make a phone call. Anybody that wants to know, it's Lieutenant Bach is who it is. He's very easy to work with, and we went over a number of items this morning for at least almost an hour. So you just have to get a hold of me. Now, smell. The gentleman brought up smell, and how do you determine smell? Actually, you do. Because I've had an issue where somebody had horses and they happened to move them right over to the neighbor's garden. Well, it's pretty hard to work in the garden when you gotta wear a mask or whatever, and it's not for COVID-19. It's for the flies. So what I base my thing on, the person that, I don't have a smell, so nothing bothers me. Actually, I don't even have hearing. All right, selective. Yeah, so I got a witness. Selective.
Selective.
Thanks. I heard some things you said the other night. Anyway, I rely on the neighbor. I rely on the person that lives next to the smell. And that person is the one I go off of. So if they say, and in this particular case, the person was able to move the horses to the other side of his land. And they clean them up. You know, there's also a regulation that they gotta be cleaned up occasionally. If you have animals, it's your obligation to take care of them. Not for the neighbors, for the animal too. So all this can be taken care of. Now, we're not, as far as the town, we're not hard-nosed. We give you time, we work with you. Now, the other thing is all these weeds. These toxic weeds are a problem now. It's a little late. But the county, Bart come through and he's spraying a lot of the roads and I rode up a lot of people. So I've been doing that year after year, well, a year or two. And some people don't really care because most of them don't live here. In Gooseberry, they're all vacant lots that I rode up, actually 11 of them. Well, actually 10 because I made a mistake on one. But I went to the house and actually apologized for writing her up, but she was glad because I wrote her neighbor up. So there's not a problem there. But on the weed situation, we need to change that because if they don't take care of those weeds and they end up into a farm, you can turn it over to the county will send, I just talked to them today, they will send a notice out. If they don't take care of them in 10 days, then they'll send a registered letter out. If they don't take care of them in the next 10 days, then they can call in an officer and they can actually charge the homeowner a lot. So I just want everybody that's listening or who's here to realize, I think you're gonna see a change. We do have some court cases coming up within the next month. That will help people believe there's actually something being done with the code. And that goes all the way out to bubbling wells. So it doesn't just stop here. So I appreciate everybody's help and understanding and do work with this officer and this patrol.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rich. Margaret Osowski.
Yeah, everybody, this is mosquito season, so don't have any, standing water. And for the town, I don't know how you want to handle it, this field down here, there's a bunch of standing water. So, that's a mosquito magnet, you know, they're trying to keep like the West Nile from, you know, getting here, but with standing water, it's kind of, we got a problem there. I don't know, you know, if it's from their sprinklers, but they need to really do something with that standing water. I'm gonna tell the code enforcer when he's listening, but his one good ear.
Here, on this side.
Well, you chewed the other one off. Thank you. Does the council have anything?
Nope.
And I said we'd have a mayor's town update. So real quick, I want to talk about a couple things. In our last meeting, we passed a off-highway vehicle ordinance, OHV ordinance, and in there, I sent out an email to the council regarding flags. So in the ordinance, as I plagiarized it from another municipality, it had flags in there. I saw that and I thought, okay, shouldn't we? And I left it in and forgot to talk about it. If you go to Hurricane Ordinance, they don't have any flag requirements. And I just want to know if it's an overreach that we have flags on ATVs because we have so many of them that are going on. I hate to have the sheriff pull people over because they don't have a flag as the only reason. To give them, in other words, if they're speeding, running stop signs and they don't have a helmet on, they don't have the registration, they don't have a flag, those are secondary things that you could write up in relation to everything else. But I don't want to be chasing people down just so I can have a reason to call out a sheriff on them to cite them. And so anyway, I just wanted to bring it up so you guys could just be aware of it. And it's something it's not on our agenda tonight, but I thought I would ask for your feedback. And Rich.
Just that we talked extensively this morning with the lieutenant about ATVs. It is not my job to go out and stop somebody because they don't have a flag. Flags are not for people that drive on our roads. Flags are for these ATVs that are out in the sticks and the trees. That's when you need that flag. So I think to have a flag is not for me. And the sheriff said, well, the lieutenant said, we'll take care of the ATV problem. What he wants me to do is, if a neighbor comes to me and says, I've seen this ATV ripping and tearing and doing donuts all over, and this has happened. Actually, the lieutenant said he just rode some people up in Apple Valley. I think 3 violations. They will take care of it, but what he wants me to let the people know, the residents, is that they need to call in. They need to say who it is, what time, an address, description of the person, and then a deputy will come to their house. This leaves the code enforcement out of this. My job is just to inform people that there is an ATV code. And I've already passed out a number of codes that describe it. That's information he said he wants out there. So the flag is not for the town, it's for these ATVs that run through the streets, are fine. They need to stop at a stop sign. I can do something about that if I see it, or if another neighbor sees it. And then they take off in the desert or out there in the trees. They need a flag out there because it's really hazardous. And as you get more of them here, you're gonna have a bigger problem. The officer or deputy will listen to the resident that called up with the problem, and not for me, unless I personally see it myself. So I'm not harassing anybody, I'm not picking on anybody, but I do it fairly to everybody. My job is mostly information to them. So I just want to make you sure that what's going on, why they have the flag ordinance. And liability insurance, that's all belongs to the deputy and when they stop them over.
All right, thanks, Rich.
Well, I think it's a safety issue myself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is.
and point of interest, when I left this morning to go out of here, a young lady pulled out, I didn't see her. She whipped out in front of me and I had to turn to the left and she had to go to the right, or I would have nailed her. And if she had a flag, I could have seen the flag. I think it's a safety issue for the town.
I do.
And I think it's something, we're not maybe saying make it matchwork, but maybe we need to tell them folks it'd be a good idea to put something on your bike so we can see you.
I just wanted you to be aware of it because it's, some of the conversation you and I had was different from what you're giving everybody right now. So, yeah, anyway, I just brought it up just to point it out and we can have a further discussion on it. So, anyway, I have, next on our item on our agenda is public comments. All right, Joan, unmute it. All right, Joan, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Very well.
Oh. Okay. So I'm back tonight to I requested to be added to tonight's agenda to again ask for the removal of Mr. Jorgensen due to his outrageous behavior during last week's planning meeting. And I was denied this morning and told by the mayor that neither the mayor nor the council have the authority to remove Mr. Jorgensen. So, Ben, could I ask you to display the January 2nd, 2019 Town Council agenda packet on the screens so everybody can see it?
January 2nd?
Excuse me?
January 2nd, just asking for clarification.
She's looking.
I really can't hear you. So am I being muted again? Hello?
She's talking about the ordinance.
I'm talking about the agenda packet that's on the website, the January 2nd Town Council agenda packet.
There was a meeting of
There you
the
go.
district, the water district on January 2nd, not of the town council.
No. It's the town councils. Isn't it January 2nd, 2019?
Just maybe.
I'm looking at it right.
What you're looking
The
for.
resolution is what she's looking for.
What I have in front of me is the notice and agenda, town council regular meeting, January 2nd, 2019.
2019?
19, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're
Perfect. Okay, so if you will scroll down, it's included in the packet to the 2011-25 resolution dated October 18th, 2011. Section 6.
State the resolution number one more time.
What's the?
You went too far. Go back up to the 2011-25. It's right before this one.
Oh, there we go. 2011-25.
So if you scroll to section 6, there you go. So in section 6, it says the district shall be administered by the Administrative Control Board, which is hereby delegated the power to act as a governing authority of the district and shall have and is hereby vested with all the powers, duties, and responsibilities conferred upon such governing authority by the act and all laws, etc. So if you go to section 7, the next section, it states basically the mayor of Apple Valley shall appoint all board members. Mayor Lisenby appointed Mr. Jorgensen. Now, if you'll scroll to resolution 2019-01, dated January 2nd, 2019, this is where Mayor Lisenby changed the 2011 SSD charter, and it clearly states in paragraph number 1, any and all powers, duties, and responsibilities delegated to the Administrative Control Board to govern the district are hereby revoked. Paragraph number 2 states, the district shall be governed by the town council. The town council shall have the final authority in personnel decisions, the creation and dissolution of positions. Do you all see that?
Yeah.
So accordingly, I am asking the mayor and the town council again tonight to remove Mr. Jorgensen from the SSD board, because clearly only the town council and the mayor have the authority to do so. I am astounded over Mr. Jorgensen's egregious behavior and that it hasn't been addressed by the mayor or the council as of tonight. And in addition, due to Mr. Jorgensen's history of violent and offensive behavior, I'm also asking this town council and the mayor to ban Mr. Jorgensen from attending any and all future public meetings. That's all I have to say, unless anybody has any questions for me.
No, don't have any. Thanks for your comment. Anybody else have a comment? Margaret?
I do. I wanted to comment, I'm gonna try to keep this story short because it has to do with pigs. And
We're pigged out.
so growing up in Las Vegas, Nevada, there was this pig farm way out in North Las Vegas. And the pig farm was fine. The town grew to the pig farm. And all of a sudden, the people that didn't, at that time, the real estate agents didn't have to disclose that there was a pig farm around. So all these people that bought houses near this pig farm, the smell, depending on which way the wind was blowing, boy, that smell was pretty bad. So the town or the county had the pig farm moved out further. So all was fine, for a while. Then the town moved, closer to that pig farm. Next thing you know, the pig farm's gone because the smell does stink and they couldn't control it. So I'm just giving you that little story. That's it.
Anybody else have a public comment? Anyone want to share? Yes, please.
I want to say thank you to the town for proceeding with the contractual agreement that we have with the water. I want you to know I am very, very pleased with LCAP. They have gone above and beyond to soothe our fears with restoring the property and making sure that that hill is stabilized so that we don't have any issues when we get ready to sell it. The issues of the instability of that hill due to the runoff and the damages that were done over the last 3 years kept us from being able to get a loan on it. So I just wanted to say thank you to the town of Apple Valley.
Oh, you're welcome.
And thank you to LCAP.
The other thank you back to you is that we negotiated access with the miners and the next landowner down, and we're able to put gates in. Is part of our contract was they have to put the fence back, and instead of putting the fence back, we're putting a gate there so we have access to get in there. We have to go down to one of those manhole covers and do some maintenance or add some riprap or something at the end or anything like that. We have that gated access now to maintain that pipeline. And that was not part of our contract, but we thought it would be wise to put that in so we don't have to tear the fence out again, go and work on.
Well, I have to tell you, what will make maintenance easier for me because of those floods, that other side of the hill where I used to get the tractor in, it's dangerous. I can't get the tractor down there anymore. And they're not going to backfill that.
It helps us out and helps you out.
Right. And they're not going to backfill that. They're going to backfill where the hill is and stabilize that hill for me again. But they're not going to be able to take care of the damage further down. And so, to have that access for us is vital.
Yeah.
And for the next owners coming in, it's vital.
Well, you did a nice job.
Maybe
about done with that.
Oh, Marcia Minor, sorry.
Anybody else have a public comment?
We're seeing one property down, what, 100 and how many to go?
Yeah.
For drainage.
Yeah, I put a Facebook post out and I took a lot of lashback, but the difference is that these were contractual agreements between the town.
There shouldn't be no flashback.
And there shouldn't be any flashback for
I have a question.
Yes, Margaret.
I have a question, and I'm sure, too bad Sean's not here because he probably could answer it, but my question is, okay, so we have those ditches, but and the residents are supposed to take care of those ditches, but our property line stops before the ditches, so why do we have to take care of the ditches? It's not our property.
You posed an excellent question, and I thought for a long time, I wonder if we should be doing that as well, other than money and lack of ability to do it. But the Sean's question or answer to that, when I asked him that question, was it's like that Moet, when you go out into St. George, you've got 5 feet of grass that you install in that area between the sidewalk and the street. And people plant their grass, they plant whatever they want there, install stuff, and they take care of that. And it's the same kind of thing where that is. It's the front of their property and it's their curb, appeal. But that you don't own that public sidewalk and you don't own that mow strip before there, yet everyone takes care of it. And it's kind of what the ditch is in that area. And there's people, they don't want to do anything to it because that's how they feel. And others say that it's my property, I want to make sure that we take care of it. And, I've gone out, done some mowing on stuff that's not mine. And the neighbor came out one day and says, thank you for doing that. I usually take care of it for them because they know that they won't get taken care of unless they do. And so if we even have neighbors taking care of their neighbor's property because it's an absentee owner or something. And, the cool part about being a town like we are, we can choose everything that we have. And we can go out and buy a mini X. We can hire some guy to go out there and clean every single one of these. And I've also thought about what would it cost and could we just do that all over the town wide and re-clean out all these ditches because we have a lot of people not doing it and everyone would probably drain better and probably be safer as well for everybody. And it could be that it makes sense to do that. And we have limited resources and we have to choose carefully. So would you rather have that or sub-under roads for gravel? And that's half the time, that's what's happening is we're picking and choosing what our priority is.
Is it a state law that says that, you have to, that even though it's not, like.
I don't think it's a state law. You could ignore your ditch, let it grow and.
Well, I don't, but when I was pulling weeds the other day, I was thinking, I saw my little skate thing and I'm thinking, why am I in this ditch when my property's back here and this ditch is up here?
Exactly. And I spray my ditch area and clear down half down the road as well because I know Walter won't do that part because he says it's not his. There's people that do it that way and that's why some of the sides of the roads look that way because of that. And, you can say, yeah, it's all our responsibility and we can take it on. And we can just say, okay, it's all our responsibility. Let's hire someone full time and buy a mini X and let's go out and start cleaning up all these roads. And then it's one more thing we can't afford to do, because of the expense of it. And you could be right on it. Sean's take was what I gave you, where it's that mow edge that you have in front of your house. Then you have the sidewalk, which is a public sidewalk, and then your property starts. And
I like the mow edge better than the ditch.
Can I make a comment on that ditch? I think if we were to put a bar ditch in, like what they're doing in front of our property on the corner, that is so much easier to maintain. You can take a mower right down the center of it and a weed whacker to the edges, and you'll never have an issue with cleaning your pipes out again. And we had bar ditches before Interstate Rock came in and did such a crappy job. I think if they were to restore the bar ditches,
yeah, we could.
People wouldn't have an issue there.
We could look at improving those bar ditches. I think in Apple Valley or on Romas, especially, I notice it because I drive that every day. And, they're just really an indentation more than what you call a bar ditch.
Right.
And
they're supposed to be bar ditches.
And there's some of them that if you turn down to Mount Zion, one of the other homeowners over there, they did about probably 1,500 feet of cleaning those ditches out, and it made a huge difference in the flow. And so it could be that that's the right answer to do, to clean those out. And that's something we'll be looking at. Commissioner Sosky?
You asked the question whether we would have the roads or the ditches. My answer would be the roads. And the reason I say this, where we live, and a number of other people in Gooseberry, there's quite a hill or mountain right there. And what's happening to my ditches, there's 1,100 feet of ditches I have. So on those 1,100 feet of ditches up to the mountain, what happens, all that rain when it comes down, if we have type 2 or road based, that seems to compact down pretty tight, like when I first moved in. Right now, what happens since we have nothing but dust, all the rain comes down, goes across the road and takes all that dust and dirt and fills my 2-foot ditch up to where I have 6 inches now. So by putting the road in and compacting it down, And then you wouldn't have the expense of using a grader all the time because it's a much better road. You wouldn't have to do a drag. And when you do those things, it stirs the dust up. And then I gotta listen to Margie and a rag when she wipes the counter, but actually I did that. So, didn't I?
I don't know.
Okay, so that's the problem with the roads, is they're filling all the ditches up. And then the grass goes in there. So the roads are more important to keep the ditches in the condition they should be in.
On Apple Valley Drive, they have a couple of the same kind of problem where that water comes off the hillside behind them and fills up all of our pipes as well that go underneath the roads. And once a year or so, we've got to go over there and clean those things out because it's the silt and so forth that is carried in that water, lands in that pipe, sits there for a little bit, and that's what happens on these bar ditches is the water fills up and sits, and that whatever's in there settles down the ditch, and in no time they're filled back up again. That's why they're so shallow, you know? And that's why I'm thinking that maybe we need to clean them out. So it's something I'll get with Denny on and the roads people, and we'll bounce some ideas back and forth and find out, you know, we need to prioritize, you know, the road base versus ditches. You know, should we try and tackle a couple of these projects? And so anyway, those are some things on my to-do list. Any other comments? Anybody? All right, we'll close public comments then. And let's go to that last item of adjournment. And we do have one more meeting, just so everybody's aware.
No need for a closed session?
No, we don't have a need for closed session.
I make a motion, we adjourn tonight's town council meeting.
Second.
And vote. Aye. Aye. And so I'm going to take a minute. Okay. Intermission, I guess.
What's on the, so now that you have a fire restriction, I take it you guys don't want to put those towers down there. They still have those towers.
I got so many complaints out here that
Just for those still on Zoom, we're just kind of in intermission until we start.
I agree with the nice guy.
Town council
I'd like to see it started.
unless they see the better they are, people who blend in with the surroundings. Just do your thing, you know?
Yeah. You know.
Junior. Hey, Junior.
Yes.
Just a question.
You know, you need to, when, you need to like go along the sides of it,
So, right, like we did for a while. Yeah, we're still under that.
And so it's rid of that one, so it would never happen, like if you're running water.
We'll help them out. Thanks.
Even just split them on each
We're going to call the town council water oversight meeting to order. It's Wednesday, June 17th, 2020. And the items we are, well, let's do roll call first.
Paul Edwards in here.
Debbie Cobb here.
Marty Lisenby here. And discussion items, we have discussion of possible action on approval of Cook and Jessup well improvements with balance of the 159 farm recommended by the Big Plains Board on 1/2/2020. And basically, we got some funds left over in that account, and we just got a letter of approval to go ahead and spend those monies. And they've already got contracts in place. I think we probably have hospitals in here. And a lot of this is going to be done with volunteer labor, and a little bit of it's contracted out. Some of it's parts, the Ross Gregerson will take in Mount Harvey Governor and Dale Harris in approving that Cookwell Justified improvements. So I just need a motion.
I move that
Unless
we
you have any
approve the,
questions. Unless you have any questions, anybody? Okay.
I move we approve the Cook and Well, Cook and Justin Well improvements for the balance of the 59 funds, recommended by the Big Plains Board.
Second.
And vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And discussion and action on approval of USDA rural development grant contract. All right, the grant contract, what that is, they're gonna give us about, $600 some thousand, it's almost $700 grand.
Yeah.
And that's to fix the, we had an earthquake, and because the water, where the well is so liquefied, there's so much water that's coming out of that well up there that goes onto the ground, and the ground itself is liquefied, and it was a small earthquake, and boom, that earth shifted because of it. And anyway, USDA is to give us a grant to fix it, so not much to approve there other than to say yes, I think it's all free money. So anybody want to do a motion on that one? Any questions on it?
Nope.
I think we've been talking about this stuff for a while.
Take their money.
Yeah, all right, well, I make a motion that we approve the USDA rural development grant contract.
Second.
And vote? Aye.
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 And discussion action on to approve opening a new bank account for State Bank South Utah to retain the USDA rural development grant funds. The reason for this is the stipulation in the grant itself requires a separate bank account, and we need to instruct them to do this, and just want to make sure everybody was aware of it.
Right.
So that's a requirement of them, and they have some strict guidelines on it. So.
And I make a motion that we approve new account request for Big Plains Water and Sewer SSD.
Second, anybody?
Second.
And vote?
Aye.
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 And discussion action to approve resolution BPW 2020-02, which is a water rate increase recommended by the Big Plains Board on 6/11/2020. And I just wanted to spend a couple minutes, go over real quickly a couple of things. So I'll let him buzz through some of this information real fast before we do this.
Yeah, if you don't mind, maybe I'll stand up here. It's not very often I do a formal presentation, so I just like to take the opportunity. So this is kind of a modified version of the presentation that I did from the Big Plains Board. Basically, what I'm trying to do is establish to the public, I get a lot of comments from the public not understanding the debt and the operational costs of the district, and they want to know why, since we've operated for 7 years with a $29 base rate, do we suddenly have to increase it to $49? And basically, my objective is just to clarify those two primary questions. So the first thing that I did was I outlined on the first number you see here is, first we'll talk about the debt service and what each of the loans that the district has taken on. And the number that you see in white there is the annual loan payment. So every year we have to pay $85,000, and that was a loan for the acquisition of the Apple Valley water system and the Cedar Point water system. So that's an $85,000 loan that we pay every year. The next one that we have on top of that is in 2014. I don't have a lot of the backstory with this, but I guess that the Apple Valley water system was pretty deteriorated by the time it was acquired. So it was put in a long time before that, maybe with some inadequate equipment. And so they had to come in and do a pretty major loan. Here you see that the annual loan payments on on that loan is $126,000. That was a big deal. They had to come in and rip out all the pipes. So basically the Apple Valley water system from my understanding, is a new water system. Basically just completely from start to finish. So, I mean, at this point, you're over $200,000 just from those two loans, one in 2012, one in 2014. So we add on top of that an aquifer study. This one's almost paid off. We've got 2 more payments on it, but it's still $9,000 every year that we pay on that. That was just to understand the aquifer. I highly recommend that when you have a free Saturday or quiet Sunday that you go in and read the aquifer studies. It's pretty interesting. I'm not a water guy, but I enjoyed the read. That's available on our website.
You like spreadsheets too, though.
And I often read the phone book.
So the next one is the Canaan Springs. So this system was acquired in 2018. It was not acquired for the customers. It was acquired for the water source. However, the customers pay for the debt service, almost. I think last time I ran it, the money that's generated from the customers of that system, it's something like $16,000 or $17,000 that they pay into the system. There are operational costs. Dale spends a lot of time out in Canaan Springs. All of this grant money that we've been pursuing, engineering. There's still a lot of other costs that go into the Canaan Springs, but hopefully that will serve the community for years to come. That's the hope with that. So that is our debt service. It's about
I just want to pause just real quickly. The amount of water that we get out of Canaan Springs is enough water to supply all of Apple Valley. And 20 years into the future, as far as what we anticipate the growth to be, that's how much water is up there. And that's why purchasing that was so vital to us as a community, because it's spring water out of the mountain, and it's a huge deal. For that kind of price, it was well worth it. They should have done it.
So that was our debt service, about $240,000 every year just to pay those loans, to do those system improvements. As we add on to this, we're going to be talking about operational costs. So first we have labor and interlocal. So interlocal is services that the town does, but the district pays the town to do that. That's my services, accounting, clerking, in addition to Dale and his benefits. I looked at other water systems, and as a percentage of total cost, we are a little bit higher. So I just looked at Washington City, and their personnel expense is about 12 to 13%, and ours is about 20%. There's a lot of economies of scale that go into that. It's a difficult comparison to make, but it's pretty close. We're not too far off.
What's that amount?
91,000. Administration. I'd have to look at my notes to remember exactly what this is, but there's travel and there's a few things that I could look at my notes if we want to understand what administration is. There's also equipment operation. Now this is all the system repairs, replacement, new equipment, basically everything that is tied to the wells and the pipelines and all of that. So on an annual basis, this does not include depreciation. Cash out the door every year is $392,000. Okay, so let's put that into perspective and work through our revenue. So our base rate, this is not usage. This isn't this is just $29 a month for every water connection. That brings in $130,000 every year. We add on top of that standby fees. We have about 100 standby fees. Now these are people that are eligible for a waiver of an impact fee as long as they pay $29 every month. And if you do the math on it, it makes sense that they keep paying that. So the next one is water usage fees. So this is the actual water that's flowing through the pipe. We meter and charge per 1,000 gallons. That represents about $55,000 every year in water revenue. So this is our guaranteed, quote unquote guaranteed, mostly secure money. We get $220,000 in cash in. That's not even close to making up what we need for our cash out on an annual basis. So how do we make up that difference? Anybody that's been coming to meetings for a while knows that we make up the difference through impact fees. Impact fees are not consistent. They're not reliable. They can be used to pay debt service. There's very specific requirements as to what you can spend impact fees on. Because we acquire these systems, we can use the impact fees for debt service. But that said, the number that we require is $173,000 in impact fees just to make up the difference on that cash out number. So that's a really big deal, and I'll get into historical values in a minute about impact fees, so I'll set that aside for a moment. We have proposed, after a study from RCAC, we have proposed a $20 per month base rate increase. That's what the water district just recommended to the town council. Then we increased the base rate and the standby fee by $20 a month, from $29 to $49 for a typical residential connection. That green shows the difference. It shows how much more we will have reliable income coming in. We previously needed $173,000 in impact fees. We now only need $60,000. And mind you, this is break even on cash. This is not meeting our requirements for our debt service, for our debt covenants. So when you take a bond out, you agree to set money aside for future short-lived capital asset replacement. $60,000 doesn't cover that. It enables us to pay our bills.
And there's no reserve, not just reserve, but there's no rainy day fund here or.
No rainy day fund, right?
Depreciation or planning ahead, in other words, for a catastrophe. None of that's included in here yet. Just paying the bills. That's it.
So how long have we had the rate that the base rate that we're?
Since inception.
Wow.
Since 2012.
So we haven't had an increase since then?
No increase.
There probably should have been.
There probably should have been, and had there been an increase, it wouldn't need to be quite as much. So the longer you put off an increase, the more it needs to be.
And
So-
to get clarification on that?
Yeah.
We were paying $25 a month for 15,000 gallons before the SSD was put in. So take into perspective the long-term residents that have been here for more than 2012, okay? We have gone from paying $25 for all the water we could possibly use in a month on an acre.
Yep.
To now, we're more than double, and now they're asking us to double that.
Right. And to that, I might respond, not to argue, I might respond that the water system was failing. It was a failing water system.
That's why we voted to have it come in. And we did vote on that. That was a vote. Well, I know that I really spoke valiantly to have that put in. I felt like that was what we needed to do, and I spoke valiantly to have that done. I'm not so sure about the water, but this makes sense.
Okay.
It's just gonna make it hard for those of us on fixed incomes.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what we call in accounting terms a cash runway. How do we look for the next 6 months? This is taking into consideration impact fees for what we received on average for the last 12 months. So it's about one impact fee every other month is what we've received in the last year.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. He's such a geek.
I'm
not laughing about the situation. I'm laughing at him.
This is
His
great,
geekness.
though.
Yeah, all those things are going down. Is that good?
Yeah, so green is where we've been. For the last year, we've been trending down pretty heavily. Red is a projection with no change. That's the red that goes down. By December, we're in the red. And I looked at different options for rate increases. So with no change, basically the other question is what happens if we default on loans? Well, USDRD, Rural Development, and DDW, the State Division of Drinking Water, they hold our loans. And essentially they have control of it. They have the ability to come in and take over the administrative role of the water district. It's hard to say what they would do. It probably depends on their mood. They could adhere to the RCAC's recommendation and increase the water rate to $111 a month. That's entirely possible. So $10 a month base rate increase, we're still negative. $20 a month base rate increase, we dip right below zero. It's kind of scary. We're crossing our fingers that we get a couple more impact fees. That's what we're recommending is this model where we're still dipping below zero if we don't increase the number of impact fees we receive. And we also looked at the option of $29 base rate increase, which would have kept us above zero with the projected impact fee collection. So that's the cash runway. This is what I was talking about, impact fees budgeted versus actual. In blue, you see what we've budgeted on an annual basis for impact fees. And in orange next to it is year by year what we've actually collected. So you'll see in 2019, there was a big year of collections. We collected from 2 major commercial projects that really boosted that up and enabled us to pay bills at that time, really. But every year we fall significantly short of what we budget. for impact fees?
Impact fees, those are coming from the homes being built.
Yeah, you guys paid an impact fee when you
Yes,
built
we
your
did.
house.
Yeah. And did you say you're averaging one of those every other month?
Every other month for the last 12 months, yeah.
Really?
Because of standby.
Well, we have,
Yeah,
we have building permits like in Cedar Point, but those impact fees have been paid at some time in the past, so we're not collecting those today.
I got a question for you, Ben. Couple questions about your graph and everything. You mentioned residential, but two things. I'll start with this one. On my water bill, I think it was $65 this last month. I used 25,000 gallons of water, whatever. But in some cities, they don't charge on the $29, they charge on the tier. If you use more water, like in Las Vegas, they go to the end like tier 3, tier 4, tier 5. The people that use the most water sometimes need to be charged a higher rate.
Yeah,
To
absolutely.
start the conservative part where it will limit them.
We have a tiered structure that goes up there's 5 or 6 tiers that
Exactly.
increase how much you pay. Every municipality, every water company has a base rate. And that's because you have to pay for those fixed expenses. If everybody shuts off their water, you still have to pay your bill.
Can't you pay it at the person that increased their rates?
There is usage rates that account for that, yeah. And I'll get into comparisons with other local municipalities, maybe that'll answer your question.
And also commercial. Are you gonna raise the rates for commercial?
Yes,
And
Proportionally, we only have 2 commercial connections, so it's not material
because I don't see it when you show the commercial portion. into
because we
this
have 2
graph.
connections, yeah.
Yeah, and the people that don't have water, and I'm not singling out anybody, but they come and fill up off our hydrants. I know the people that use construction,
So they're charged at $4 per 1,000 gallons, so they're paying for the water they use.
they're paying a commercial rate.
More than a commercial.
More than a commercial rate to fill up that 4,000 gallon tanker.
They're paying a lot of money to do that.
So when we move past impact fees, we basically always collect less than we project. So then the question is, and this was actually really revelatory for me. I asked myself, well, why is it just now a problem? Why am I saying that in 2021, 2020, we're gonna run out of money when they've been operating for 7 years? That's a question I was asked a few times, and I addressed that here. So basically, anyone who's refinanced a house knows that you get 1 or 2 months where you don't have a mortgage payment. Basically, that's what happened here. When we financed the water system, we went 1 or 2 years, every loan that we take on, you don't pay for the first year. And so we were able to stockpile cash. This number in white is our bank balance. That's our bank balance at the end of every year. So we started with 242, went to 218, 159, 47, $1,000 at the end of 2018. Got tight there for a minute. 135, thanks to those commercial impact fees. And now we're back down to 56. Basically, without big commercial projects, we can't pay our bills with our current rate. So the next step, and this is a question I hear a lot, well, down in Hurricane or Washington, they don't have base rates that are that much. There's a few problems with this that I wanted to address, this comparison of other municipalities. So a lot of these cities are buying their water wholesale. They're buying from the Conservancy District at a very specific rate. They don't have variable costs. They know how much water is going to cost them. In addition to that, I think I get down here. Yeah, so they're buying water wholesale, and that you don't have to maintain a lot of the equipment. There's a lot of simplicities with that. So here's another thing that should bother residents of Apple Valley. Your property taxes you're paying into the Conservancy District and not receiving that wholesale water. You're not benefiting from that. The town of Virgin, I believe, is the only municipality in the county who doesn't pay into that Conservancy District property tax. And that's due to some historic water right. I don't want to get too much into that, but most other municipalities benefit from the Conservancy District. Now, they might say that they're watching out for our best interest or whatever, but on a very literal basis, there's no benefit to Apple Valley residents of that property tax.
for that money that we give them? Is there anything we can get them to do to our water systems to help us?
Supplement our water rates.
Yeah, there's gotta be something. If
Now,
we're paying the property taxes, that's taxation without representation.
now, one thing that's kind of interesting is we looked at the retail water rates of the Conservancy District, and they are much higher than what we're even proposing. And so we really don't want to ask for their help, because they would say, well, charge as much as we're charging and then see where you're at. So the other thing, and this is obvious to anyone that lives here, economies of scale. I live in Washington City. From my house, I could probably walk 10 steps and touch 5 water connections. You don't have that in Apple Valley. You're paying for a much bigger water system, distributed less. These high density neighborhoods reduce the burden on the residents. The water system was completely replaced in 2014. That's actually pretty rare to have a water system fully replaced all in one fell
I
swoop.
think we still have a tank that we're using that is one of the originals.
Yeah. Commercial enterprises reduce dependency on residents to pay for the water system. This is something that Apple Valley struggles with all the time. Our sales tax revenue, our property tax revenue, commercial bolsters that, and it reduces the burden on residents. So that's one of the struggles that Apple Valley will deal with until,
So we have a few commercial projects.
Yeah. Okay, so now we look at the actual comparisons themselves. So the one in red on the left is where we're at currently with the base rate plus 3,000 gallons. On the right is $20 more than that with the $20 base rate increase. So we're in the way. Virgin is still higher than, I don't know what the final dollar amount is. I can move that. Just because I'm curious because I don't remember.
Is that the base rate and the per gallon rate?
Plus $3,000, 3,000 gallons.
I use 3,000 gallons because I feel like a 2 or 3 person home, that's a reasonable amount of water. It's kind of what you need to survive. So
The base rate gives you 5,000, doesn't it?
Yeah,
the base rate in Apple Valley gives you nothing. You pay for every gallon that flows through a meter. So there are some municipalities that include water in the base rate, and that's reflected here. Tokerville, I believe, is one that's very interesting. They have a base rate of $36 a month, and that includes 15,000 gallons. When you go above 15,000 gallons, you pay an astronomical amount for usage. It's a really high number, and you'll see that in the next chart. So basically what I'm saying right here is Apple Valley currently with municipalities that are pretty close to us is pretty low. It's not the lowest. Hurricane's about $12 lower a month, but we're not the highest. And even with this proposed rate, we're still under Virgin, but it is pretty high. So this next one is Apple Valley Current is in the limey colors. This is at 20,000 gallons and 50,000 gallons. So where this hurts the most is at 20,000 gallons. Everybody's structured a little differently, and so you're going to see benefits at different usage levels. In this case, Apple Valley will be the most expensive at 20,000 gallons, but definitely not at 50,000 gallons. So we're kind of still middle of the pack at 50,000 gallons. That's a lot of water.
Well, 50,000 gallons isn't a lot of water if you're irrigating.
No.
Yep. If you've got a big commercial lot out there and you're irrigating like those guys are raising all the alfalfa out there, this is going to kill them.
We're not touching.
Are they on wells?
Yeah, we're also not touching the usage. So everybody will see a flat $20 increase and no more.
Well,
so usage stays the same.
Just to clarify, it's $20 increase to the residents, but we looked at the percentage and says that's, I think ballpark number was around 68% increase of the base rate. And so we'll be increasing the commercial rate 68% of that. And so it could be, it's $3 or something on a commercial account. In other words, it's proportionally, it could be a little bit higher on a commercial.
Yeah. This is service area density. This is, the argument against this is, well, we don't service the entire area of Apple Valley. We don't have pipes running to every corner of the municipality. And so I understand that. What I'm trying to say here is that this is a big service area. We have 21 residents per square mile, which is lower than any other municipality within the county by a long shot. Rockville, which has a few hundred residents, has a pretty big area. We still are even have a lower dense surface area density than they do.
Do you have
So-
a grant based on median income in the area versus Toberville and Virgin that all have multi-million-dollar investments out there?
Sorry, you said is there a grant
No,
available?
is there some kind of a way to determine? I know there are a lot of people out here, including ourselves, that are on fixed incomes. And those fixed incomes, $20 doesn't sound like a lot, but $20 is the difference between me taking care of my yard versus me not taking care of my yard. Some of these $20 will be whether food is on the table or not.
Yep.
And so the question is, what is the town going to do about those families that have no way to be able to raise an additional income to pay for those? Not me personally, because I'll make it happen one way or another, but you know, what's gonna happen to these elderly women and men out here that, you know, $20 could sink them. Is there some kind of a grant that can happen?
So there has been discussion on a hardship clause being adopted. There currently is not one on the books. We're working through the details of that, and the district, Big Plains, will be working on that.
Okay. Yeah, the state of Utah has a great system set up for disabled veterans and those kind of systems, so you know, take a look at those.
The preview of what that would look like is basically you come in and prove your income through, some, tax forms or that type of thing. And if they would calculate based on your median adjusted gross income for that person, it would be somewhere around probably 2.1, 2.2 in that ballpark percent. That would be the maximum that they would charge you for water, because the state feels that's an appropriate amount in relation to income for a hardship type of case. And so we would calculate that, and then that would be the water bill. And there would be no loan attached to that, overage or whatever. That would just be.
And there won't be like a taxation onto their home, or they tack it on.
No.
Okay, you know what, that puts a lot of people's minds at ease, and now I can talk intelligently to them.
Right. And that's what we're hoping is that some of those hardship cases don't fall in the cracks. So we're trying to think outside the box on all of this. But it's, it's everybody. You get hit everywhere. You go to the grocery store, everyone's hit. Higher prices and things like that. We're not immune to that. We talked about the replacement of those pipes in the ground back in just a few years ago. And the same pipes now are exactly twice as much money as they were when we replaced them. And so everything else goes up as well. And so it cost us more to operate than it did even before we started this adventure. So, Rich was not speaking.
I got a question for Ben. Okay, Mr. Barlow, if these people that, I shouldn't say, these residents that are going out and going to build homes and everything, I know at one time there was an issue that the state was given permits for drilling wells. Now, I don't know if he's going to drill a well and get water, or there's a pipeline next to him. So these people that are going out, and there'll be more people moving in, they're going to have to get water. So I imagine they're going to drill a well and see if they can get water. So the state was not notifying the town about giving permits out for drilling wells, and we didn't know how many wells there is. So my question is, are we got all the wells that we know of, or how do we make money as the town off the ones that's out there drilling wells? And do they have to come to the town to get a permit to draw a well? Or do they go to the state and forget about the town as far as being able to put a well in?
So procedurally, if you have water right, you have right to access water where that's allocated. I'm not an engineer, I don't deal with water rights, but I do, on behalf of the district, I review every single day public noticing for new wells that can be drilled. Because Big Plains is the steward, they consider themselves the stewards of the basin. Anytime a new well will be drilled, the district will likely dispute that with the state of Utah, saying we are the stewards of the basin. They have access to water through our water system, So we would like to provide them water service as opposed to them drilling a well. And then that is determined through a arbitration type service. In the year and a half that I've been here, there's been one application for a new well in Apple Valley. And we went through the dispute, we started that arbitration process. And the outcome was that the state recommended that we allow it to go in with conditions. So the district has access to, that we require that it's metered. There were some other stipulations that were set forth that met the conditions that we wanted to see in order to still be stewards of the basin. So we have some protection that the basin is protected.
So you think that there's people out there that are illegally drilling wells that get by us? And we're not able to catch them all?
I mean, as far as illegally drilling wells, that's a pretty serious offense, and that goes through the state. I mean, that would be a really big deal, and really it takes a well drilling company to drill a well, and so I would hope that those well drilling companies, if they're reputable, are watching out for that situation, but
would
not
that
something I'm aware of.
company, would the company itself have to come to Apple Valley and say, hey, we need a permit for drilling a well? They don't have to do anything with the town of Apple Valley.
That's correct, because water rights are not managed by the town, they're managed by the state.
They just apply to the state, and what we've done is we subscribe to a service that notifies us on every single application that's in our area for the request for permit. So we review that to determine is it, but we keep a real tight, close eye on that. But if you have anybody out there that's got any sizable amount of land and water rights, they have the right to drill a well. And that doesn't mean that, Anthony Barlow, he has the water rights and he has 40 acres and he has all that. He can drill a well. And we can't stop him from that. We can dispute it. We could go through a process, but the state doesn't let us decide what he can and can't do on his property regarding drilling a well.
But he will have to, we have the right to put a meter on it and monitor it.
If the state says so, yeah.
If
That's
the
what they
state
did.
tells us it's okay.
Right, and that's why we dispute these things, to request that kind of information. We're also looking at source protection because we want to make sure that the well's done properly and there's source protection, because he's pulling out the same aquifer that we're pulling out of, and we want to make sure there's nothing going down that well that's going to contaminate as well. So there's part of the process is us as stewards trying to do that, isn't to necessarily stop someone as much as make sure it's done properly and that there's source protection involved as well for that well. That's why we do it. But people, if someone wants to farm the land, like these pivots out here, these are all pumped. These guys turn on all those pivots, that's 1 million gallons a day that they're pulling out of the aquifer. That's why we love to have homes out there instead of pivots, because they'll use a whole lot less water if there's a road out there and some homes.
So how does that work out here with all the, I don't know if Travis owns that, who owns that, but they're using a lot of water out there, but they have their own well. So do we have a meter on that well, or we don't have anything on their well since it belongs to them?
They have water.
They have water rights, so
They have water rights, they have the pumps, and they've been there long before the town was. And in a situation like agriculture, I'm not even sure they would allow us to meter them, but possibly they would, but it's not up to us to decide that, it's the state.
And there's no way to tell us how much water's in that aquifer as to how much, because that seems to be an issue with a lot of people. Are we using up our water?
Read that study,
The study was the answer, and by the way, there's so much water, we're not right now.
Oh, okay.
And like I say, Canaan Springs has all the water we need without even pumping a single well down here.
We just gotta have the money to pipe that to us.
It's already piped.
Our future's in good shape. So.
Over here.
All right, anyway, let's get back to our agenda, and so discussion action on water. Are there any other questions from the board?
we don't have.
Paul, all right, someone want to do a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept resolution number BPW 2020-02, the resolution amending the water rate for the Big Plains Water and Sewer Special Service District.
Second.
Vote.
Aye.
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 And motion carries, and, discussion and action to approve resolution BPW 2020-03 fiscal 2021 annual budget recommendation. In that budget, a couple things have changed, or not really changed, but this does include that increase that we just voted on. And it also includes them starting to reimburse Ben for his time. And one thing I meant to ask Ben, to be honest with you, I forgot, was reimbursement to the district for late fees, and make sure that that's happening as well. Is that in that budget?
It's not, no.
So that'd be something else we'd be adding to that budget as well. So we can start remitting late fees. We've been hanging on those because they haven't been paying us anything anyway, but I think that's fair is fair. We need to start doing that. Any questions on the budget from anybody? Debbie, you got any questions you want to go over at all?
We did the interlocal with them on.
Yes. Yeah, that's in, where's that in on your Ben?
You know, it's actually spread throughout the categories,
There's several
things
of
like
those.
postage and utilities and office. The
Yeah,
primary one
yeah.
for labor is the very top one in the expenses.
And he had it up on there a minute ago, there's like $28,800 and some dollars.
21.
21?
Yeah.
Okay, so
21.
anyways, that'll be transferring where they're paying him 10 hours a week and sharing on postage and envelopes and paper and all that stuff. We're taking 20% basically of the expenses on our building, telephone, internet, insurance, and so that's the portions. That's how we came up with the numbers. Anyway, any questions?
No.
All right, I'll put a motion on the budget.
I move we approve resolution number BPW 2020-3, adopting the fiscal year budget, annual budget for 2020 to 2021.
And vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And motion carries. And I lost my place. And discussion action on Big Plains Water 2020-04 fiscal 2019-2020 budget amendment. This is what's hilarious, you guys. This is hilarious. This is to show you where we're at. I always said that this has to be before all of this money discussion. So what we did is we estimated in our budget a year ago that we're going to collect $234,000, I think was the number, in impact fees. And now we're adjusting our budget because at the end of the year, we have to have a balanced budget. And so we're adjusting our budget because we spent a little bit more, and we're basically going to increase that number to 241,000 from 234,000. So basically, we're increasing our budget by $7,000 to cover expenses we've already spent. And here's what's funny is our budget year ends in about 2 weeks, and we've taken in $55,000 in impact fees so far this year. And so we're going to vote on a budget right now that says we're going to take in 241,000, knowing that we're only going to take in 55,000. And we have to do that because the state says we need to have a balanced budget. And it's like we tell the state we know that there's no way we're going to do that. Well, that's how you have to do it. But this is how bad off they are. When you say that we've got increase of budget 241,000, well, we've only taken 55. That difference is how short our shortfall for this last year. As you know, when you spell it out that way, I think that makes sense to everybody. Now that I explained all that, you may have questions on how I explain that. Hopefully it makes sense to everybody. But anyway, that's what we're doing on the budget. Anybody want to do a motion on that?
No.
I make a motion that we have to accept this budget, even though it's ridiculous as it is, and that we approve resolution BPW 2020-04 fiscal year budget 2019 to 2020 amendment recommended by the board on 6/11/2020.
Second.
Anybody else have any other comments or questions? We can throw it in if you want to better understand it. I did a fast version of it, but
I'm not putting money in home, I'll bring in.
you want to bring in some money to help us?
Monopoly money.
Oh. It's all about the same as this budget we just read to pass, so. Anyway, let's take a vote.
Aye.
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 And carries, and I think we don't need a closed session, so.
I make a motion, we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
Vote.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, that motion carries. Thanks, everybody.
Well, the 5 minutes.
Yeah. They voted.
I'm so sorry. You know what they say, stupid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, are you gonna be around tomorrow?
I'll pick it up.
I'll be back
Ben.
tomorrow. Well,
Ben, when I come back, I'll pick it up.
Okay. Your boss?
No.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Margie.